Alright, good morning everyone. Selamat pagi. Okay, that's all about the Malay I can handle, alright? So, if you are going to speak to me in Malay, I don't think I can handle anything more than that. Alright, good morning everyone. So my name is Melvyn and very glad to be here with you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. Every time I come back to Malaysia, I'm very happy because the level of enthusiasm that I see in terms of wanting to use AI is phenomenal. In fact, I will also like to say that in spite of whatever you sometimes read in the papers, when it comes to AI adoption, I think certain parts of the world, especially in Asia, we are a little bit more enthusiastic. I would definitely say Malaysia is one of the more enthusiastic one. The other country that I had experience working with is actually UAE, particularly Dubai. They are very, very enthusiastic about it. The rest not so, right? Especially my fellow countrymen, sometimes we get a little bit comfortable, and so to us it's just another tech. All right. So just to kind of walk you through what you can expect for this 2 days itself. But before that, I think it would be good for me to just have a very quick sort of icebreaker with you. So I'm sure many of you would know each other, especially for those of you who are seated next to each other itself. But you might not know the person in front or behind you. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute for you to just very quickly turn around, say hi to the person in front or behind you. Introduce yourself, name where you're from, and what you may particularly be looking out for in this session itself. Alright, so just very quickly, 1 minute, just turn to the person seated in front or behind you. Yeah, I'm sure next to you probably know each other. If you do not know, you can say hi, right? Okay, let's go.
Tunggu. Commerce.com. Dia punya boss CEO sama Wistage dengan my punya CEO. Wistage kan, bukan Wistage. CEO punya group of. Every month dia ada gathering lah. Your CEO can the group.
Alright, thank you. Okay, glad to see the ladies getting up and saying hi, and one of you going all the way to the other side. Thank you very much. Okay, so just a very quick, thanks for participating in that. Just a very quick introduction about myself. So my name is Melvyn, and no, that's not me, but the little backstory behind this machine is when I first started my business in 2002, right? This was the first piece of investment that I made. And these days, anyone here still uses fax machine? Yours? No, right? We don't, right? Yeah. So in fact, this machine here, those days was quite expensive, and this was the first piece of equipment that I buy when I started my business. Right, not a computer, but a fax machine. And probably for those of you who have been around for a while, you know that those days you need a fax machine to send things out and to receive, right? And I still remember I had to do marketing because I have to let people know that what I do. And so every day I have to send out at least 20 to 30 faxes, right? And you can't, those days you have to put in the one sheet of paper and then you press the number and then you press ring and then you wait for it to go through. You know how it goes, right? Yeah, it's really, really difficult. I do not know how many of you remember this thing called mail merge, right? Some of you remember, right? Yeah. And so mail merge was like, the best thing ever, because you could literally take a spreadsheet and use, I think at that point in time was the old version of Excel and Outlook itself. And what you can do is you could actually send out, faxes automatically from your computer. So what I do is, a trick that I did was every night, before I go to bed, I will just set the fax machine to ring, because that's the time when no one's going to use the phone, right? But then of course when I wake up, all 20 faxes will be out. And that was when I learned from my public service days, right? Because the first thing the secretary goes to the office is that he or she will go to the fax machine and look for all the faxes, right? And she will then stamp them and put them in the boss's in tray. Yeah, so that's a little bit about my backstory. But very quickly, that's me. My name is Melvyn. Now, if you look at the photo, I think you probably would guess that is an AI generated photo, right? Yeah, but how do you know that there's an AI generated photo?
Too handsome.
Huh? Yeah, if you look at the photo itself, the complexion is almost too perfect, too good, right? And if you see in real life, you know it's not quite, huh? Let's put it that way. Yeah, so it's amazing how AI these days can do a lot of things. Of course, I put that in my LinkedIn as well, but but LinkedIn is so small, right? So people can't really see. Anyway, so just to share with you a little bit about the lead up towards how I got involved with AI itself. So I started my career back in '96, right? And those days, when you need to use a computer, you actually have to type in commands. Those were what we call the MS-DOS days, right? I think some of you still remember. And those days, if you get a comma wrong or a bracket wrong, that's it, right? The thing wouldn't work, right? So I was running program using ancient computing language called Fortran. I don't think anybody knows Fortran these days. Yeah, but that was what I started with. And again, like I said, if you get one comma wrong or one additional comma or one dot extra, that's it, right? The whole thing doesn't work. So I always remember sometimes I would tell my son, this one you have to capitalize, this one you do not have to capitalize, right? And he will be like, Dad, why do you need that, And I'm like, if you don't get it right, the computer program won't run. But of course he doesn't understand. So long story short, after that I joined the public service, and my role was mainly in research and policy. Which my professor said was the best job ever, because all you need to do is just read and write. I agree, but after a while it gets really, really boring. And so that's where I started working with SMEs. And then I got lured into the .com, thinking that by the age of 30 I could make my first million and retire. Right? Obviously, the fact that I'm here, it didn't happen lah. Huh? Okay, so but when I saw the .com at a point in time, I was so excited because finally you could sit at home in your pajamas, order something and have it shipped to you, okay? Of course, that was 2000. We know that it didn't happen until probably 2012, 2015, before, you and I, we do not have to think about putting our credit card into the internet, right? Because those days, in 2000, I think many of us were still concerned about putting a credit card into the internet, okay? Of course, maybe some of you here, 2000, maybe, I do not know. There are places where I go and do training. Some people tell me, 2000, I wasn't even born yet. So anyway, yeah. So it didn't happen, so I went on to do strategic planning for SMEs as well as for schools in Singapore. This schools part was something that I did a lot more. I stayed a little bit more. As you can see, the rest of it was like all one or 2 years only. Yeah, for this school one, I spent about 14 years doing that. So I was really helping schools in Singapore. Right? I do not know whether you know, but schools in Singapore, we run it like little SMEs. You know, we've got vision, mission, values, and all the KPIs and all that kind of stuff. Right? So I did that for about 14 years before my wife and I decided that we wanted to try something different. So we sold off everything except our 2 kids to travel. Right? We spent 6 months in Europe, 6 months in US. We took a year to travel to really widen our perspective. And again, it was during this time when I thought that I would become a millionaire again. Why? Because I thought I could just be making YouTube videos, have people watch it, and then, voila, I could just continue traveling. Again, of course, you know that didn't happen, that's why I'm back here. Right? So when I came back to Singapore 2018, I did a small little experiment, and that experiment was basically to create 184 short form videos. Just to put things into perspective, this was way before TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of thing, right? Instagram Reels. But I was doing that, and it got me 400,000 views, which was great, right? But can you imagine walking into a bank and say, "Can you give me a loan that I have 400,000 views on my videos?" It's not going to happen, right? So I had to find ways to turn that, that views into projects. And this is what I did. I managed to get some of these companies, some of the best brands in the world to work with me. However, I think they always say, right, if you want to make God laugh, you tell him or her your plans, right? Yeah, and that's what happened, because in 2020, we know what happened. COVID-19 hit, many things changed. The business was just taking off, but after that, I couldn't see people, and so, it didn't quite work, right? So when COVID was over, I was a lot more excited. I was like, yes, finally I could restart the engine again. However, that wasn't to be so. So the sad story is at the end of 2020, I was actually quite upset because the business was not taking off. And then I spent about a year or two trying to figure things out. Then in 2022, this guy showed up, right? Not him, but this guy, ChatGPT, showed up. And when OpenAI released ChatGPT, I was really excited. Okay, so I applied for early access. I got early access, but I think like many of you who first tried out ChatGPT in the beginning, I'm sure you were like, okay, yeah, you can do quite fun stuff, but that's about it. Right? So honestly, I wasn't quite impressed with it, because yeah, it can correct my English, right? My English is not that good. It can correct my grammar and all that. It can do some summary. It can draw an astronaut windsurfing in space, but that's about it, right? So the question is, if you remember, I got 2 young kids, right? So I had to feed them, right? So I was like, how do we turn that into business application, right? And that was what was troubling me. So when it came to 2023, I was excited. I started out, marketing my training program. But lo and behold, during that time, 2023, I think very few people think that they needed training. They are like, ChatGPT need training, man? Just go in there and type in and just say whatever you want, and it will give it to you, right? Yeah, what's there to train, right? Now we're talking about 2 days. Last time, 1 day or so, people don't want to come. Okay, so what I did was I went back to some of the companies that I used to work with, and I say, hey, maybe we can take a look at this thing called AI, and so they were kind enough to work with me. And so 2023, I spent most of 23 doing implementation, and it was here when I started to get all these different case studies and examples. Right, so some of the case studies that you will see here over these 2 days are from 23. But if I'm only going to show you 2023 case studies, then it's backdated, right? Because as what they say, a week in AI is like a year in the normal technology space, right? Okay, so when we went into 2024, I started to realize that many people needed training, and many people wanted, training in terms of ChatGPT itself, and so that was my focus. So I spent most of 2024 doing a lot of training. As you can see from the numbers there, it was really, really exciting. Get to also, in a way, travel the world to meet with people like yourself. And one of the things that I noticed the difference, right? At the beginning of 2024, I think many managers were saying that, yeah, I'd like you to come and train my people. If anything, just to give them a flavor of what AI is, right? To just expose them to what is AI and what AI can do, right? But when it comes to end of 2024, I think the focus was very, very different. It was no longer come and train my people so that they can explore. But now it's come train my people because I want them to use AI, right? Particularly in marketing, for example. So in Singapore, we have this thing called Skills Future. I think you have the equivalent here, right? Something along the line of HRD itself. So as a citizen, you can go for training. The government will pay some of your training fees, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we had that. I developed 2 courses in digital marketing with that. So that kind of brings me, to where I am and how I look at AI itself. So, if you ask me going forward 2025, right, how do I see where AI is going and all that? I think 2025 is going to be a very exciting year, because the next tool that I'm going to show you, I think many of you would be familiar. This tool. Okay, I'm sure this tool, you can get it at your local stationery store for, I don't know, less than 40 ringgit. I think you can get a decent one. Yeah, if you're a bit fancy, spend a bit more, you can get a better one. Right? But the point is this, right? In just less than 50 ringgit itself, you can have a machine with that level of capability. I do not know about you, but I won't be able to do sine cosine anymore, right? But this thing at less than 50 ringgit is able to do all that kind of things for you and I, right? At a fraction of the time that we would do it if we were to do it by hand. So where I'm saying in 2025 going forward is possibility of something like this, right? I know this looks like a BlackBerry, but it's not. This is just a rendering. So, I'm sure you have heard of DeepSeek, right? Yeah, and we love DeepSeek, don't we? Yes? Okay, some of you are a bit hesitant, but never mind. I say the reason why we love this DeepSeek is because after DeepSeek came out, all the Angmo companies all wake up, and they started giving us some of the tools that they used to charge us. They give it to us for free now, right? So I mean, who doesn't like free stuff here? Right? We all do. Right? You don't like free stuff, or maybe you don't trust, huh? Okay, never mind. So the point I want to make is that with DeepSeek that came out recently. It got my attention for various reasons, and I'll share with you the other reasons. But one of the reasons why it got my attention was now you can actually download the entire large language model on your phone. I do not know how many of you know that, right? You can actually download, not the app, not the app, but the actual large language model on your phone, and some of you maybe on your computer. Right? And what you can effectively do is that you can start using it even without the internet. Okay, which means if you do not have internet access, let's say you are flying on a plane, and you suddenly thought of something and you want to use AI If you want to use ChatGPT, double A, right? Because no internet access. But with DeepSeek, you can actually do it. Right? And so how I see it is that in 2025, we are probably going to see devices whereby you can maybe even buy off like popular bookstore, right? Buy off popular bookstore whereby you can pay maybe 50 or 100 ringgit, maybe a bit more, right, for a machine like this, and inside it, you will have an AI tool, right? You have an AI tool. You do not need internet access, and so you can go to any part of Malaysia, whether there's good internet access or no good internet access, you can still use it, right? And when I came back, I just came back from Dubai yesterday. And so when I showed this to them, many of them were actually very excited, because some of them were thinking like, if we're going to sign up for a license for each and every of our staff for ChatGPT, it's a lot of money. It's 20 US, right? 20 US to 30 US per person, okay, depending on the range that you get. But imagine you can have something that you can walk around and you can upload your own policies. People could ask about your HR policy or your leave policy, right? Or if if you're a salesperson, you can look up your products, and immediately if your customer asks you about certain things, immediately you can respond, in double quick time. Yeah, and so I think this is probably one of the things that we are going to see a lot potentially in 2025. The other thing that we're going to see quite a lot in 2025 is this thing called agents, right? Not FBI agent, but the AI agents, whereby it's able to do things for you. Okay, and of course that one right now it needs a subscription, but later on I'll show you how you can do it even without a subscription if you are on 365 in your company. Who here isn't on 365 in your company? I think everybody in the whole wide world is on 365, right? Yeah, so we'll get into that. So, what I would like to do is first and foremost to give you an overview of what you can expect over this 2 days itself. So very quickly, I think the first part, what I'd like to do is really to get you familiarized and acquainted with some of the terminologies, because some of the terms that people use, not quite accurate, and so just have a common terminology between you and I, and you can also see how does AI work in terms of marketing. Right now, then we're going to move on to this thing called prompt engineering. I'm sure you all have heard of prompt engineering, right? And my view is that prompt engineering is one of the newest skill set, right, that people would need, right? And I would argue that prompt engineering is probably going to be one of the new skill set with the shortest lifespan, all right? Because very quickly, I think you and I do not need prompt engineering anymore, the way things are going, and I'll show you why. Right, so I'll walk you through in terms of crafting prompts. How do you write prompts? How do you think about prompts? Right, that means if you have a workflow in your mind, right? How do you convert that workflow into a series of prompts yourself? Okay, so that's what we will do. So that's these two things we will do it today. Then tomorrow, right? Depending on how fast we go tomorrow, I will also want to walk you through in terms of fine tuning. Now, for those of you who have been reading up quite a fair bit, you know that fine tuning can actually be quite complicated. Okay, but I will show you a very simple way, right? A very simple way of doing fine tuning. Not at the large language model level, but fine-tuning at the conversation level, right? What that means is that with every conversation, because as you know, with every conversation that you start with the AI, whether it's ChatGPT or anything else, sometimes you have to start over again by telling it what you do and all that, right? Because it doesn't know. Okay, so what I will show you is how can you train it at the conversation level, whereby at any point in time, all you need to do is just to jump back in and just type in, 2 or 3 words, and it gives you all the output that you want. right? I'll show you how you can do that. And then we'll do a small little mini project for you. And then last one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at this agentic AI approach. How do you use it and how do you configure it? Okay, now this best case scenario would be if you have a ChatGPT Plus subscription. How many of you here have a ChatGPT Plus subscription? No one. Okay, some of you, huh? Okay, so for those of you who've got a ChatGPT Plus subscription, that's something that you can do. So for the rest of you, you know, you might be like, okay, so for the rest of us don't have, then how, right? Yeah, no worries. I'll show you a workaround. Okay, so that all those people who pay for ChatGPT Plus, maybe after that they will be kicking themselves, like me, right? Like, why did I even pay for it? Okay, jokes aside, but it's something that you, of course, with the ChatGPT Plus, it's a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier, but even without, you can still do it. You just need a workaround. Okay, so instead of this, you have to do this. Okay. And then I would also, and also here is where I will also talk to you about biases. Okay, because every single large language model that you use has got biases. So the question is, how do you know that there are biases? How do you identify those biases? And how do you correct them? Okay, so that's something that we'll do in this part as well. So now with that out of the way, let's dive into it, right? And by the way, at any point in time, if you got questions for me, you can ask me any question you want, except one question you cannot ask me, and that's about my hair, okay? All right, so let's get started. So first, let's look at, you know, AI. What is AI, right? So this is the definition, as you can see here. And I think for any one of us here who have been using Facebook, right, you would know what AI is, okay? Because how does Facebook know that when you open up the app, I assume that some of you still use Facebook, huh? Right, or Instagram, okay? So when you open up the app, how does it know what posts to show you, right, and what ads to show you? Okay, and the reason why it knows that is because of AI, or sometimes we call it the algorithm. Okay, and so if you have, if you watch Netflix or YouTube, I'm sure you've come across this. At the end of every video itself, they will show you what you can watch next, right? And the worst is Netflix, right? You just finish a mini series and it's 1 a.m. and then they show you a new mini series and it's absolutely exciting. Right, and you're like, but tomorrow I got training, you know, and so you have to debate with yourself whether to watch it now. So again, how does it know? Right? Well, it knows is because it's collecting data points from you. So what you have been searching, what you've been watching, what you have been, you know, swiping away, or you watch halfway, like this one not sure, so you stop watching it. Right? All those are the data point, and from those data point itself, what it does is that it identifies patterns, okay, patterns. And based on those patterns, it then knows what are some of the recommendations that it should put forth to you. And usually, right, I'm sure some of you will agree with me, usually the recommendation is pretty good, pretty spot on, okay? Now, but as good as this AI is, this is not the AI that we're talking about here today. Right? Because this AI at this level is still not capable of creating new content. Okay? Because someone actually has to film that video, someone has to make that mini series, right? Brad Pitt or whoever still have to act in that mini series itself, right? So you still need someone to do it. So that is actually AI, and the AI that we talk about that many of us use these days, actually this is referring to the AI that we have for more than 10 over years. Now, the AI that we are talking about today, in today's context, is called generative AI. But this is not a lecture, right? So going forward, we'll just use AI as generative AI. You know what I'm saying? Because if I have to say generative AI every time, okay? So we're just all gonna use AI, but we know that when we say AI, we actually mean generative AI. So what is generative AI? As the name implies, generative AI is capable of generating new content. All right. That being said, if you speak to the purists, the purists are those people like all the machine scientists and data rocket scientists and all this stuff of people, right? If you talk to them, they will say that, well, actually, it is not true that it's able to generate new content, right? It is the algorithm and never mind, all right? That is for academics. For us as business people, as marketers, we just need to know that when we use this technology, whatever we put in is able to give us an output. That's what we want. Okay, now some examples of how and what AI can do, we'll get into that. But how does AI able to do that? Let's take a look at this. Now, many of us use the term GPT, right? Not uppity, but GPT. But sometimes we don't really know what does GPT stands for, right? Right? I'm sure in your country you all use some terms, and new people will come to the meeting. They're like, "What are you talking about?" In the meeting, you're like. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, right? Generative, as the name implies, it generates new things, right? Transformer means that it's the machine, right? The large language model behind it. The word that I'd like you to focus on is this word in the middle. It's called pre-trained. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is that when you use a large language model, right, it comes pre-trained with a set of data, right? It comes pre-trained with a set of data. So how does that look like? What does that mean? It means that when you buy a phone, it comes pre-installed with the OS, whether it's iOS or it's Android, right? And maybe to a small extent Huawei, right? Okay, so it comes pre-installed with that. Just like when you buy a computer, it comes pre-installed with Mac OS or Windows or whatever. Okay, I do not know about you, but if I get a computer without anything pre-installed, I wouldn't know what to do with it, right? Because it was just that blinking cursor. So likewise, ChatGPT comes pre-installed with certain set of data. Okay, and how it works is basically, when you want ChatGPT to give you an output, you need to put in an input, right? And the input is what we call prompt, right? Or a set of instructions. Now, if you look at this prompt itself, right, it's a very simple prompt. And what this prompt is able to do is that when you put in a prompt like this, it's able to give you an output, right? It's able to give you an output. But the question is, how does it know what output to give you? Right? So there are two factors here at play, right? One is you must write the correct prompt, because if you write something else, it will give you other results. Right? Secondly, it knows how to give you this output because of its pre-trained data. Right? Because of its pre-trained data. Now let's take a look at this prompt itself, and let's take a look closer. Okay, if you look closer at this prompt, right, or the way that this prompt is written, there are actually two parts to this prompt. Okay, so one part of the prompt is called a task. Can anyone tell me what that task is when you look at this prompt? Write a tagline. Absolutely, right? Thank you. Write a tagline. So when you say write a tagline, that is actually the task that you are giving to the AI. But if you just put in write a tagline, it wouldn't know what type of tagline to give you. Just like if you walk into Harvey Norman and you say, I want to buy a computer. And the guy said, okay, what do you want to buy a computer for? Or what kind of computer you want to buy? And your answer is, I want to buy a computer. You get where I'm going with that, right? So that doesn't give you sufficient information. And so it requires another part, which is in the prompt itself. And the other part in this prompt is the context. Because over here, the context is ice cream shop, right? Because if you were to, were to, provide a prompt that says write a tagline for a bookshop, right, or for a coffee shop, or a pet shop, the answer that comes out will be very different. Or if you keep the context but you change the task, you say that give me names for an ice cream shop, it will give you a very different output. You get where I'm going with that? Yeah. So that's what that's how you should be looking at your prompt. So when we say that when you look at the prompt itself, what does it mean, right? Because at the end of the day is with all IT is basically input and output, and with all IT is also this concept called garbage in, garbage out. Okay, which means if you put in good input, you get good output. If you put in, not so good input, you get not so good output itself. Right, so that's something that you would do. But how does it know what to give you? And this is where the training data comes into play. Right, so the input will require the training data to give you the output. Okay, so without the training data, it will not be able to give you the output. So, but there is a problem with this training data. Does anyone know what is the problem with the training data? It is outdated, right? It is outdated. So for example, if this keeps updating, so after a while I can't keep up, so I just leave it as an example, right? Okay. So if you use any AI model, the training data is always outdated. It's always in the past. Okay, so if you use this ChatGPT called ChatGPT Classic, which means that it only has got training data but no extra capability. If you ask it right now who is the president of the US, it will tell you Joe Biden. All right. So let's dive into prompt engineering. Now, prompt engineering is, like I say, it's a skill set that any one of you can learn. All right, and the better, and actually, you do not need to go for any course for prompt engineering, because the course that you want to attend is actually not prompt engineering. The course that you want to attend is basically whatever skill set that you are good at. Meaning, if you're able to take whatever you are already doing, think of it as a workflow, right? And then ask yourself, how do you get AI to do each and every step of that? That is actually prompt engineering, right? That is more important than just learning how to prompt. So let's give you a very simple challenge yourself, right? So let's say you want to use AI to conduct market research. What would you put in as a prompt? What would you put in as a prompt? So what would you type into ChatGPT or any AI tool if you wanted to do market research? Huh? So remember, when you type in the prompt, there should be a task and a context, right? So what would be your context? Market research for, let's say, your company, okay? And then the task would be conduct market research, right? So conduct market research on, let's say, property market in Malaysia, for example. That would be how most of us will start off with. All right? Now, when you do that, actually what you're doing is what we call zero-shot prompting. Okay, so this is a new term that I think some of you might first encounter, right? So this is what we call zero-shot prompting. What exactly is zero-shot prompting? So zero-shot prompting is you basically just provide AI with a task or a question, but you provide it with very little context, right? Or examples, right? So you just give it a task or a question, but you don't give it any example or any context. Now, if you are struggling to copy everything down and or take picture and whatever, please don't do that, okay? Because at the end of tomorrow, so the reason why, the reason why I don't give you the slides up front is because what I usually do in a session like this is that I would sometimes make adjustment to the slides based on the questions that you ask, based on the conversation that we have. So tonight when I go back to the hotel, I'm not just going to kick back and relax, right? I'm going to think through what some of the questions that you ask. So it's important that you ask me whatever questions, because then tomorrow when I come back, I can give you something that is more relevant to you. And so that's the reason why I don't give it to you upfront. So the promise to you is that for those of you who would like a copy of it, later on tomorrow I'll give you ways that you can request for it. Okay, so you can still take pictures and write down notes, but just know that I can provide that to you if you want to. Okay, so zero shot is basically you providing it with very little example or context itself. So what is going to happen is that the model will basically give you the output based purely on its training data. Right? Now, if all this sounds like Greek to you, I know. So sometimes it's like, I don't know what he's talking about. Just to give you a sense of it. Okay, so when it comes to prompt, actually there is a spectrum, right? So we all start with zero-shot prompt, okay, which means, like I mentioned to you earlier on, little context and or example. What I want to get you at the end of the day is to be able to know what is few-shot prompting techniques. Okay, and I'll show you how it looks like. Now, in terms of output, there's also a spectrum. So you can get very basic output to very advanced output. So advanced could be you can get it to do a lot of things, or you can get it to give you output that is peculiar to your industry / company. Alright, so as I mentioned, most of us start here. We just put in one-liner, conduct market research for pharmaceutical industry in Malaysia. And then it gives you very generic output, right? Yeah, you're like, this one I also know. Okay, so not much help. Okay, so what I want to do is to get you here by the end of 2 days, to get you here. What you do not want to do is to end up here. You spend a lot of time prompting and then still get generic results, which some of you will encounter. Why? Not because you're not good, but because you are relying on the training data. That's why this happened. Okay, but I tell you where most companies want their people to be at. They want their people to be here. So remember just now I showed you that Steinway video script custom GPT. All they want is for their staff, any staff, to type in something simple, say give me a video script for this model, and the AI would know specifically what they need. Right? All the kind of details, all the kind of things are aligned to their style, tone, voice, and whatever. Okay, so that is what company wants their people to be at. Okay. Now, so what does zero-shot prompt looks like? Okay, so to give you an example, let's say I want to do a research on the mines industry, and assuming, let's say I got a report, I could just upload the report to ChatGPT, and I could just give it this one-liner prompt. Give me a summary of this report itself. Right? This is what we call zero-shot prompt. Because you are not giving it any examples or any context. You just say, give me a summary of this report. And so sometimes we look at the output and we like, face palm, right? And if you take a step back, sometimes we are expecting ChatGPT to mind read us. Huh? Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. So what can be done to improve, or what else is missing, right? What else is missing? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go to what I call few-shot prompting. So what does few-shot prompting looks like, right? So few-shot prompting means that zero-shot, no example, little context, or no context. Few-shot means you provide it with context and you provide it with examples. Okay? So few short, what you can do is, let's say if you already have a report on the mines industry, and you have a report like this. This one is focused on HR perspective, and this one is focused on technology perspective. All right. So what you could do is you could then give it the prompt. Right. You can provide it with 2 examples, and then you tell it that now give me a summary of that report from an AI perspective. Okay. Using the 2 summaries as examples. Okay, so it's not very complicated in terms of prompting. What it means is that you don't just say, give me a summary. You tell it that, give me a summary of this report, but your context is from an AI perspective. Okay, and in addition to that, you are providing it with examples. So that it's basically few shot prompting. Now, if you like to, you can type in this URL. So type in the full URL here, without the www. Right? Just type in this full URL, and what you will see is you will see this example. Okay, so you can take a look at the output that comes up from there when you use zero-shot prompt and you use few-shot prompting technique, and you can see the difference in terms of the output. Okay, so that's something that you could take a look at that. So if we go back to the example earlier on, right, or the challenge that I posed to you earlier on. Let's say you want AI to do market research for you. All right, if you want AI to do market research for you, what are some things that you could do to sharpen your prompt instead of just saying conduct market research for my industry? Right, so of course you can substitute this, my industry, to whatever your industry is. So this, ladies and gentlemen, this is zero-shot prompt. Okay? So how can you go from zero-shot prompt to few-shot? So one is you want to provide it with a bit more context. So what is the context here that you can provide it with? Anyone? So let's say you are saying that conduct market research for pharmaceutical market. Right? What other context can you include? In Malaysia, right? So location could be one way that you can add context. What else can you add context to? Okay, so for specific disease, to kind of generalize that, let's say you are saying that I want you to do market research for my industry, focusing on a particular problem or focusing on a particular issue itself, right? Okay, now you can expand this by saying that I want you to do a market research for my industry with a focus on a particular group of people. Okay, so that people could be a specific segment of your target audience, or the people could be a specific group of people who need this drug or this service, for instance. Okay, now another way that you can think of, another variable that you can include here is, you can think of it in terms of price. Right, conduct market research for my industry, right, with a focus on people who have little budget, or people who are on the budget, for example. Right, so this 3 P's, as we call it, or 4 if you include this one, which is place. Okay, this 4 P's, it's how you can sharpen your prompt to give it more context. So it can be place in Malaysia, right? It can be problem. So focusing on market research for my industry, for people who have this disease, people who suffer from obesity or hypertension, right? Or in some of your other situation, you can be saying that conduct market research for, a consumer product for people who are suffering from distraction, all right? Or people who have too many devices and they need to manage it, for example. So it could be a problem, right? Or you can focus on conduct market research for my industry, for people in a particular of a particular market segment. So small business owners, right? Distributors, for example. Okay, you can of course go into conduct market research for my industry, focusing on people who are looking at luxury segment, high end, high net worth, or people who are on a budget. Okay, so that's how you can sharpen your prompt to bring it from zero shot to few shot. Use these 4 P's: place, problem, people, and price. Now, in addition to that, to go from zero shot to few shot, in addition to changing the context, you can of course provide it with example. So let's say you have done a market research for last FY, all right, or your predecessor has done market research, and there is a particular format. You can then say, conduct market research for my industry, for Malaysia, and follow this particular format. And then you provide it with an example. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so this is how you can go from zero shot to few shot. Okay, now by no means are these examples exhaustive, but I hope that this will give you some additional ideas of how you can go from zero shot to few shot. Okay, so in summary, take your base prompt, which is usually zero shot. Ask yourself this 4 P's question. Can I provide more context in terms of place, problem, people, or price? Okay, so this is the context. And then ask yourself, do I have examples that I would want AI to provide me the output so that it conforms to whatever format that I want? So as an example, if you get a new intern or you get a new colleague who comes in when you go back to office after today's session itself, and you want the colleague to help you with reports, you don't just say, end of this month, you have to give a report. What would you do? You would usually give the person some example, right? This is how we used to do it. So maybe you can read it and then you know that this is our expectation. So same thing with AI, right? Same thing with AI, okay? All right, so this is few shot. So once again, you can go into this URL if you want to take a look at what is few shot itself. So here, let's go back to your to your workflow. Okay, if I can ask you to do in your workflow itself, you would have 3 steps. Let's start with step number 1. Okay, let's start with step number 1 that you have identified. If you have not identified, then please identify it now, because if not, otherwise you cannot go for lunch. So identify the 3 steps. Start off with the first step first. Okay, so ask yourself, look at this part here. How can AI help? Okay, then practice by using from zero shot to few shot. Okay, how can you ask AI to help you with the first step itself? Okay, so can you do that? So if you did not capture this, these are the 4 P's, and then the examples that you can provide to go from zero shot to few shot. Okay, I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to try this out. So try it out, and I will go around and see what is the mileage that you get out of this exercise itself. Okay, so please start. You can work with the person sitting next to you, or you can tell the person sitting next to you to do it, and you just watch.
Zero shot.
I'm assuming survey, customer feedback, all the company, right? So you can just write down one or two. Yeah. Yeah. So but the time consuming survey, right? So this would be right? And then how can I help you out? And maybe if there are some of those customer feedback, I'm sure you will customer feedback. You can use that, ask it to analyze, and then ask it to say, maybe, from this customer feedback, what is the perception of the brand from the point of view of the Yeah. 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 So first, let's start off with the first step. Use from zero shot. So in the past, we just say that we just type in all ideas that we say, how do you want the current perception? Right? Then that's zero shot. Yeah, so you may say that, okay, based on this data, right, some BB size in terms of is there a place, right, is there a region, so maybe the place for Malaysia, or maybe even for a specific state, or maybe user or non-user, or people who have been using it, or people who are churning, for example. Yeah. So that's the future. Correct. So this will give you better output.
Ini dah lebih short kan? Karena tak ada soalan dia kata lebih short.
So we can say that, okay, for example, seniors and manager, right?
Kalau yang berdekat hati tu tak ada lebih. Satu orang sikit-sikit berdekat kita berdekat betul. Bagaimana?
So that's how you structure it. So this is just a start. What later on you want to know is that you need to spell out what are all the steps. So you can actually do that that's still but like that currently so that's something so if you want it to link to the database, so later on I'll watch. Yes. So let's say, for example, we have a SharePoint, right? You will have it. So of course, you will see the purpose of the application. Right? But other than that, you're using the co-pilot which I was explaining. That is something. It's Azure, it's Microsoft Azure. So everything is use that data to train the model, make it up. Yeah. Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So yes. So anything to do with identify or of course cannot. So that one the Django. So right now we are just starting with ChatGPT understanding the concept of that, right? So that is the output you can have to use. Okay. Okay. So as I of course because they told me that they told me on Saturday morning that suddenly we have a big group in this session itself. So it was a bit last minute, but if it's a smaller group, of course I can go to a bit more of you. But here, I have a bit of a constraint, so I hope you understand. But if you like me to take a look, or if you are thinking of what you can do, and you would like to know how you can explore that, just let me know. Okay, I'll be more than happy to share. Right. So now you get a better idea how you can go from zero shot to few shot. Next, what I'd like to do is to give you some idea of when you should use this, and when would this be not good enough. Right. So if you are looking at just performing what we call a single step task, that means like you just want it to give you a general market research so that you can have an idea of where things are going. Right? Or if you are just saying that I have this data and I want you to do an analysis, right? Again, like a one-step kind of process itself. That's why I ask you to take your marketing flow, right, and just focus on only step one. Right? So if it's for a one-step process going from zero shot to few shot, it's really pretty good. Okay. However, if your process requires multiple steps, right, or it's a bit more complex, or you require more analysis, for instance, then even doing few shot would not be enough. Okay, so then what can you do? Now, then the way that you want to craft the prompt is not just going from zero to few, but you also want to take on a slightly different angle itself. Now, so this best practices for crafting prompt, basically how it works is that you actually craft your prompt in 3 big blocks, right? And I'll guide you along, so just hear me out, right? So the first block, what you want to do is you want to assign AI a role, right? You want to assign AI a role. Okay, and this is where perhaps I could share with you if you are interested, and if go back, maybe your friend asks you, so did they talk about DeepSeek or not? Right? Because this is like the talk of the town, right? So this is where I share with you a little bit insight in terms of what makes DeepSeek so good compared to ChatGPT. Now, you might have heard that DeepSeek, let's put aside all the speculation and whatever conspiracy theory, but based on what has been reported, DeepSeek is a lot more efficient and its reasoning model is much better. Right? And I think you also hear that they say something to the effect that DeepSeek, by the way, you all can hear me from back? Good, huh? Okay. So they also say that when it comes to DeepSeek, it's a lot more efficient when it comes to computing, right? So if you're wondering, like, what are you talking about, right? So basically, because DeepSeek actually use a slightly different approach when it comes to assigning tasks to do computing. So to give you an analogy, right? Let's say you need some help with your bank account, and so you call your bank, whether it's CIMB or Maybank, right? You call your bank. What usually would you encounter? Press 1 for, right? Press 2, press 3. By the time you come to press 7, you forgot what is option 4, right? Correct? Yeah. So why do they do that? Well, they do that because they want to filter out your requests, right? Because all of us who call, I would say that most of the time when you call, your request, right, can be done using an automated service. Some of us may be traveling and we want to know how much credit limit we have left, right? So that one you don't need to speak to a person, right? You can basically check it online yourself, right? But there might be certain things like, okay, you might be traveling and you want an increase in terms of credit limit, then the one you might have to speak to a person, right? You might have to speak to a person because the person might want to clarify. Okay, so that would be at a different level. Now, but assuming you are not talking about increasing your credit limit or checking your credit limit, but you are saying that, I sent in an application, it's been 3 weeks, I still no picture, no sound, what's going on, right? So that one you don't want to talk to a machine. You may want to talk to a human, you may want to voice your frustration or your displeasure. Right? So the reason why they ask you to press 1, press 2, and press 7 and whatever, right, is because they want to know what is it that you need. Then they can most efficiently direct you to either a machine that can help you or a human that can help you. Right? Okay? So can you imagine that every time you call CIMB, the CEO picks up? Right? And presumably the CEO got better things to do, okay? So then the fellow will have to say, okay, what do you need? Okay, wait, that one, actually my accounts, people can settle it. Okay? So jokes aside, ChatGPT or OpenAI works on the model whereby every time you send a request, the CEO picks up. Okay? So it requires a lot of computing power. Right? Because it's using all the different experts there is to solve your problem. So some of us may be asking just a factual thing. Some of us may be asking for something that is more analytical. Some of us could be asking for something like, give me ideas. Right? So each one of these tasks would require a different expert, right? You know what I mean? So the one who is factual, maybe you just need a historian, right? Because it's factual, right? Something that is analytical, maybe you just need a mathematician, for example, right? Someone who is creative, maybe you need someone who is an artist or a creative person, a marketer, for example, right? So each one will need different computing power. But what OpenAI does is that whenever you send, all these three people come and show up. Whereas for DeepSeek, what it does is that it uses this method called MOE, not Ministry of Education. But MOE is mixture of experts. So capital M, capital E, small o. Right? So mixture of expert means that when you send in the task, it will actually analyze your prompt and then decide which is the expert to help you, so that it doesn't waste computing power. Okay, so the way that we are doing this is actually the same method of the mixture of expert. We are going around the need for OpenAI to give us the most creative expert, where we just want someone who's factual, for example. Right, so in this case here, we always start off with the role. What is the role that you would want the AI to perform? Okay, so you start off with that. Next, after you have given it a role, you definitely want to give it some context. So context is actually a very, very important thing when it comes to prompting, because it's context that it understands what you need. Roughly within what boundary are you looking at? Okay, so context is actually very crucial when it comes to prompting, when it comes to using of AI, when it comes to giving instructions. Alright, so context. So here we are also providing AI with some context in terms of how it should respond. Alright, how it should respond. Now, once you have provided it with the role and the context, the last thing that you want to do is to give it instructions. Right? To give it instructions. Now here, you know, right? Sometimes your boss gives you instruction, then you do the work, and then you go back, and then the boss says, but this is not what I want. Then you're like, but that's what you say, or right? So the instruction is not even clear, right? Yeah, and then we have misinterpretation, and there's a lack of alignment. So this will happen in AI as well if we are not sure what we want, right? Or sometimes worst case is you kind of expect AI to know what to do, but sometimes the fella just make it up. All right? So there are a few things that we will have to do when it comes to the instruction, but let me just give you some example, right? So let's say you want to do market research. I tell you, the best tool that you want to use to do market research is actually not ChatGPT. Right? The best tool that I think you should use is Copilot. Alright, Copilot. Now, here is where I need you to stop and maybe listen to me for a bit. Right, because Microsoft is one of the most confusing companies in the world. Right? Have you gone into 365 and figure out like what's going on? Yeah, and if you get, sometimes you get people from Microsoft who comes in, they will talk to you about all this thing, and you're like, I didn't even know inside got this thing. Yeah, so Microsoft, when it comes to their naming convention and everything, it's actually quite confusing. So when we talk about Copilot, there are actually many different versions of Copilot. Yes, right? And when I show you all the different versions, you'll be like, I didn't know that, Okay? So the first version that I will show you is basically this one. So this is Copilot. No, sorry. I told you, right? Confusing. So this is Copilot. So this is Copilot at the personal level. Okay? So if you sign in, using your personal account, this is the Copilot that you will get. Now, this is a version that is okay to use, but this is not the one that I'm referring to. So this is one version of Copilot. Now, you have second version of Copilot, and when I say version, I'm just using it loosely. Now, the second version of Copilot resides on your, not the star, the version of Copilot actually resides on your browser. Okay, so this is where I had to add a caveat, because at the enterprise level, for some of you, you all could be using the Microsoft Edge browser, but I know in some companies they have disabled the sidebar Copilot. Okay, so if you are using Microsoft Edge browser, not Firefox, not Chrome, right? And I just want to say this not because I'm making fun of you, but because there are some people who go to Firefox and they look for the sidebar. You will not find it. All right? Okay, because sometimes to us may be very clear, but to some people it's very confusing. All right, so this one you can only use if you are using the Microsoft Edge browser. Now, like I said, at enterprise level, I do know some clients that I work with at the corporate level, they have disabled this sidebar. So if you do not see this button, this beautiful button here, that means your company might have disabled that. Okay? But for the rest of you, do you all see that button there? Yeah, okay, so what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to click on that button. Now, when you click on that button, you will see this sidebar that comes out. Okay? Now, I tell you what this is good for. Right? What this is good for. This is good for what, you know? This is very good. For example, it says good news for contributors, right? But then if you're going to read this, you have to deal with the pop-up, the advertisement, you know, all that kind of things. And then cookies and whatever, right? Okay, so what you can actually do is, whatever page that it is open in, you can actually open this Copilot sidebar, and then at the bottom you could say, give me a summary of this article. And what it will do, right, is that it will actually know that you are referring to this particular article itself, and then it will provide you with a summary of the article. Okay, so this of course you can go from zero shot. This is zero shot. You can go from zero shot to few shot. Like, you know, give me a summary of this article focusing on perspective of employers. You know, and give me in point form, for example. You can say all that, and it will do that. All right. So this is good for articles summary. Now this will also work for, let's say let's say you are looking at a PDF as well. So let's say I have this PDF, right? I open this PDF, okay? But I got no time to read this, right? I could ask it to do this, right? And it would actually read the PDF file for you and give you the summary. Right? How many of you know about this? Before I share this? Some of you might know, huh? Yeah. So this is something that you could do. So it works with any website or most websites. Okay? And it works with PDF files as well. Okay? Now, another good news is that it works with some YouTube videos. I said some, because some, after a while, I do not know why it doesn't work, right? So let's say I am interested in this video, right? But I may, how long is this? 24 minutes. I do not want to see two dudes talking for 24 minutes, right? So I could ask it to give me a summary of this video in 3 point. Yeah, so if sometimes if the video does not have the transcript, this is what will happen, right? But let me see if I can pull out another one that might be able to give you this, right? Some might not have because it's. Yeah, so the mileage with YouTube video these days is hit and miss, but at least you know with regards to articles and PDF, you can actually use this Copilot to help you with that. Okay, so once again, this is still Copilot at a personal level. Alright, so this version of the second version, right? Now the third version of Copilot, which is actually the most powerful one, resides in your 365. Alright, it resides in your 365. Now, if you log on to your 365 on the web, and you should see Copilot here. Now again, for some of you, you might not have access to this because maybe at their IT level, they have disabled that, right? But if not, you should see your Copilot here. Do you all see that in your 365?
Yes.
Okay, so some of you do, some of you don't, huh? Okay, now take note, just look out for 1 minute. Now, if you are on this 365, this one, they tell you that you have enterprise data protection. So what that means is that whatever information that you query here, in terms of prompt, in terms of whatever you upload, in terms of the output, this all stays within your company's Azure server. Right? You know, when you all subscribe to 365, I think at most enterprise level, you all have got a dedicated server. Right? So whatever that is being asked here, right? Although it's sending to the cloud, but it's sending to your dedicated Azure server. So which means somebody else from another company will not be able to benefit from you talking to Copilot, right? So this is the same as we will not use your data to train our models. You get it? Okay? Now, so for those of you who have got 365 Copilot, you may see that yours perhaps only has got the web version, but not the work. Okay? So here is the third version and the fourth version, right? So the third version of Copilot is on your 365, and it's called the Copilot Web. Okay, so this one behaves just like ChatGPT, but it is way better. So let me show you, right? So if you are using ChatGPT for free, the capability is limited. So this version is just like ChatGPT Plus, but you do not pay because you actually pay to Microsoft already. Right? So over here you can say that, you know, conduct a market research for let's say property development in Malaysia, focusing on the luxury property sector. Right? So as you can see, what it is doing here, it is by default is going into the web to search for the information, and it's giving you all these results here. Right? You see that? Okay, so this one is way more powerful. Why? Because it gives you all the sources. It tells you where all this information is taken from, so you can actually verify them. Okay? Now, if you are happy with this research, right? Because if you were working on ChatGPT, if you like this research, you actually have to go and copy it and then paste it somewhere. Right? But if you are doing this in Microsoft 365 environment, all you need to do, if you look up, all you need to do is just to click on this part here that says edit in pages. Alright? So again here, if this is the first time you are hearing pages, pages is like a slightly advanced version of Word. Alright? So if you click on it, it will appear like this. So everything that you see here can be saved to your own OneDrive with just one click. Okay? So as you can see from here. Alright? Now, so this is something that you can do with the Copilot Web. Okay so far?
Okay.
Right, now, for those of you who pay $330 a year, US, $330 a year to Microsoft, in addition to your 365 license, you get Copilot Work. Right? What Copilot Work does is that it has access to all your files and emails and calendar of your account. Right? So as an example, over here I can, let's say I know that in my OneDrive I've got a lot of files, but how many times have you go to OneDrive and then you click and 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 then, right, to look for the files. Okay, so technically speaking, so I'm giving OneDrive because it's just a simple example. By extension of that, if you have Copilot Work, you can actually access your SharePoint and all that in your company. Okay, so let's say over here I could do this, right? I could ask it to go to my OneDrive. Yes.
Just one question. For some reason, it says I'm locked out, but this is the first time I'm doing it. Does it happen often?
You're locked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I do not know, but Copilot is it?
Yeah.
365.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe your company doesn't allow you to use it. Could be. Yeah. All right. So I could say go to my OneDrive and look for all files with the content on strategic thinking and provide me with a summary of those content. So what this will do is that it will actually go into your OneDrive, look for all files related to the subject on strategic thinking, and it will give you a summary from here. Alright? Now, what this means is that, as an example, right? So can I just get you to look up for 1 second? So let's say you are asking it to conduct a research, right, on the use of AI in small businesses in Malaysia. Okay, so that is like how you're asking it to do a generic research, go to the web, do a research. Alright? Then look up our OneDrive to look for our customer information and then provide me with actionable insights of recommendations I can make to our customers. So basically, this might not work because I might not have sufficient information in there. So basically, what this means is that you are asking it to do two things. One, you are asking it to go to the internet to do research about the use of AI in small businesses in Malaysia. Once you have done the research, go to my file and look for customer information. And based on our customer database, their usage, their subscription, and all that, right? Give me a list of recommendations that I can make to existing customer or, a prospect on what they could do or marketing materials that we can recommend to them with regards to use of AI. Right? So in fact, you can marry that tool itself. And so with this $330, you can basically right, connect both your research on the internet using AI with your own data
to give you that kind of analysis. Okay, so coming back to this, if let's say you say identify target audience, right? Research target audience, and then develop personas. But you already have information about your own customer base, for example, right? You can ask it to add on to our existing customer base information and revise the persona. You know what I'm saying? Right? So this will make your work a lot more seamless, right? But of course, this requires an additional subscription. Okay? Right? Questions so far? Alright, so this is the Microsoft Copilot that I am talking about. So in case you didn't know, this is what is available to you. Now, having said that and having demoed that, I am now going to come back to ChatGPT because that's the platform that we are all going to use, because some of you might not have access to Copilot in your 365 itself. So what we were talking about earlier on is the best practices for crafting prompts. So you need these 3 steps, right? The role, the context, and the instructions. So if you can apply this in your 365 Copilot, that will be wonderful. But if you cannot for now, just use it on ChatGPT. The results are also pretty good as well. Alright, so what you want to do is first you want to give it a role. So a lot of time, people ask me, how do I know what role to give it to ChatGPT? So my question twofold. During training, what I would usually tell the participant is, how would you know what role to assign to ChatGPT? The answer to this question will tell you what role. Right? The answer to this question will tell you what role. Okay? Now, you can go something like this. But if I could share with you at the when we work with our clients and when we are helping them to write this set of prompts, we actually ask them for their job description. Okay? Because their job description will tell us what is the level of knowledge, skills, expertise, experience, responsibility, and so on. So we are very detailed when it comes to writing of the role. Okay, but just for practice sake, in this context itself, let's say you are going from identify, now you're going into research, whereby it requires multiple steps. So over here, who would be the best person to perform this task? So maybe a marketing research analyst. Okay, a marketing research analyst would be the best person to perform this task. So you assign this role to ChatGPT. Okay. Now, next, you provide it with context. So over here, context-wise, what you can do is you can basically tell ChatGPT one of 2 things. You can tell it who you are and what you do. Alright? Who you are and what you do. So if you are thinking like, you know, how much detail should I tell ChatGPT who we are, right? I tell you very simple. Go to your website. Go to this part says about us, right? Copy and paste that and put it inside. That will be good enough. All right? Okay? So that is giving context about, you know, what you do. But sometimes you may want to take it one step further. You may also want to tell ChatGPT what do you want it to perform, or what do you want it to, how do you want it to operate. Okay, so this is where you will tell ChatGPT that, you know, I want you, the user will be asking you a series of questions and I want you to provide these answers, right? So this is how you tell ChatGPT how it would operate. So over here, just for illustration purposes, for the context wise, I'm just going to say, this is who we are and this is what we do. So this one I coupled from your website. Right, because I have no idea what I won't be able to write all this. Okay, so just take from your website, about us, copy and paste, that should do. Okay, so we have already given it a role, we've given it the context about who you are,
Next, we go into the instructions. Now, the instructions part is where, where I would say makes a difference between whether you get a good output or you get a very good output. Right? Very nuanced output. And so to go from good output to very good output, you need to do this, right? Instead of just giving it few short prompting as I talked about earlier on. Here what you should do is you should do the following. So as an example, you want to tell it, you don't want to say perform market analysis because that is zero shot. Right? But you also do not want to go into few shot here because it will not give you any much difference. Instead, over here, what you want to do is you want to outline the steps, step by step. So you want to say that I want you to perform a market analysis by following these steps. Then this is where you detail to AI, right? Step 1, I want you to do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, and step 4. That's what you would want AI to do. Okay? Now,
you will be providing us with this, right?
yes,
Alright.
yes, no worries. Right? So when you ask it to do this, basically there is a technical term for this type of prompting. Does anyone know what prompting technique is this? So this prompting technique, right? This instruction part is what they call chain of thought. I'm sure some of you have heard of this before, right? Chain of thought prompting. So chain of thought prompting, just for your interest, chain of thought prompting is also the same method that they use in the reasoning model. Okay, that they use in the reasoning model. So for example, with OpenAI, their O1 model and their O3 models are all using chain of thought in their models itself. Okay, the DeepSeek R1 model is also using chain of thought. Okay, so what chain of thought actually means, a very simple way of thinking about it is you take a workflow and you chop it up into small steps. And you tell the AI to perform in accordance with these steps. Okay? You tell AI to perform in accordance with these steps. So this is where you, instead of just saying that perform a market analysis, you tell it that follow this step. Step 1 is what do, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now I have a question for you, right? What if you do not know what the steps are?
Google, AI.
So what's, huh? Ask AI. Very good. Right? So if I am a marketing noob, right? And I have no idea how to do this. And I want to use this method. So what would I do is I will go to AI and say that if you were to perform this, right? If you were to perform this task, list the steps that you would take when performing this task. Right? List the steps that you would take when performing this task. And what AI would do is that it will then give you the steps. But there's a problem. You know what's the problem?
Not a clear requirement.
Because you do not know what you do not know. Right? Okay? You do not know what you do not know. So whatever AI gives you, if you do not know, and it gives you like 8 steps, right? You're like, whoa, 8 steps. Wow. Looks solid, right? You're just gonna take it. Okay? So tomorrow I will share with you a technique, right? Whereby even if you do not know what you do not know, what is a way that you can actually get the answer from AI itself. But as of now, not to complicate things, as of now, just take it that if you know, list down the steps. If you do not know, then you ask AI, if you were to perform this task, list the steps that you will take in performing this task. And then allow it to give you the results. Then what you should do what you and I should do as intelligent being is we read through it and we see whether it makes sense. Oh, right? So this is the least we can do, huh? Look at it and say, okay, it makes sense, right? Or this one maybe try to smoke me, okay? So that's something that you can do. Okay, so list down the steps itself. Yes.
Sometimes if we list down the steps, right, these 4 steps might not be the best 4 steps. So do we still give? Because I worry that we are restricted how we get the result. Restricted how we get the best result. So sometimes I want to keep it open, but sometimes, so how to manage this?
Yeah, very good question.
Do we try both ways, and then, or we try get them to give us the 8 steps, then we filter from that?
Okay, very good question. I would not answer that question now, right? But depending on whether it's end of today or tomorrow, I will talk to you about that. Okay, because so very quickly, what I would do is that I would actually ask AI for a critique. Yeah, I will ask AI for a critique. So there is a way to do it in such a way that, let's say you think that this is your 4 step, or you have been doing this for the longest time. And so if you want AI to, you're not sure whether, are there better ways, right? So you can actually ask AI for a critique, right? But there is a technique and there is a sequence to doing that. So I will share more of that with you. Okay, so very good question, thanks for the question. So if you are not sure, so now let's assume that either you know or you do not know, okay? So if you know, you just list out the steps. If you do not know, you ask AI to give you the steps, you review the steps, and then you paste that steps into your instructions. You with me so far? Okay? So we take it as step first. Now, once you have given AI these steps, you will almost have this whole set of prompt that is complete. You have a role, you have a context, and you have a list of instructions. Right? So that is complete, almost complete. Okay, so once you have this role, context, and instruction, if you put all this into a new conversation, what you will experience later on is that at any point in time, like I showed you earlier on, you can jump back into the conversation and just type 2 or 3 words. That means you can just do a 0 prompt, and AI will give you the time. Okay? So role, context, instructions. And with instructions, make sure it's chain of thought. Okay? Now, just a few more things to add to that is the following, right? So one of the things that I noticed that sometimes people do is that they will use terms that may be quite generic or quite ambiguous. Right? We may say that do a good research. But what is good research, right? Okay? So the joke around this is that, if you want to know whether AI is aligned to you, right? That means AI interpretation of certain words is aligned to you. All you need to do is try this. Ask ChatGPT to tell you a funny joke. Alright? Because most of the time when the output comes out, it is not funny. Okay? So the point I want to make here is the following. It may think that it's funny, but you think otherwise. Okay? So in other words, it may think that it's good one, but you may think it's not good enough. So here is where you need to be a bit more specific, and this one partly requires experience. partly requires a level of clarity on your end as well. Okay, so what I always tell managers is that when it comes to this part, you only need two things to filter it out. So whenever you run through the prompts, or like for example, if I were to review your prompts, right? If I'm working with you as a client, if I review your prompt, I will look out for terms like this, good and better. And then I will ask you for two things, either the conditions or the criteria. Under what conditions would this be good? Or what is the criteria for better? That will be my questions. And so your answer to those questions will then becomes the conditions or the criteria in the prompt. Okay? So as you can see where we're going with this, we're going from 0 shot to few shot. From few shot, just for one step, now we are going into multiple steps. Right? And in multiple steps, you will need that role, context, and instructions. And even with the instructions itself, you also have to filter out or to vet through to see whether your instructions are clear. So it's not just enough for me to tell you that, oh, your instructions must be clear. All right, next slide. But what does clear means, right? So you must specify conditions or you must specify criteria. Okay? So like I say, this one requires two things. It requires clarity on your side, and it also requires experience on your side. Okay? So this is one thing that you have to take note. Now the other thing that you would have to take note, and this is the last one, right? When it comes to giving instructions to ChatGPT, you have to treat ChatGPT or any AI tool like a 5-year-old. Why? For those of you who have a 5-year-old at home, you probably understand why. You tell the fellow what to do, you must also tell the fellow what not to do. Because you say that, but you asked me to do this, you never tell me I cannot do that. Right? Yeah. So same thing, what you want to do here is you also want to tell ChatGPT what not to do. So for example, if you wanted to do market research, do you want it to give you output like an academic? Right? Or do you want it to give you, very generic output, or do you want it to give you actionable insights? Things that you can act on. Right? So this is where you want to tell it. So for example, you may say that, well, in your market research, I don't go all the way back to 1984, right? Because what's the use, right? For example. Okay, so you may want to constrain it to a time bound. Right? So only go back last 12 months only. Okay, don't go beyond that. Right? Geographical limitation could be another one that you can tell it. Only restrict your findings within Asia. Or give me your findings from the Western world, for example. So you might want to tell it in terms of geographical limitation. So these are some of the things that you can consider. The third one is, and I think will be crucial for some of you, the third one could be data source integrity. Right? And what that means is that you want to tell it that please don't go to all these unverified websites, right? Especially now in the US. You got a lot of fake news website, that kind of thing. They're fake news, right? Right, as Donald Trump would say. So you want to tell it that I only want you to go to reputable websites. Okay, use only data from government agencies, from research studies, for example, from United Nations, whatever. You get the point. Okay. So of course here it requires a little bit of experience. If you know, like, oh, in the past, you take it from such sources, then you want to list it down. Okay? So don't go tabloid news and pick up all the information. Right? Then the other thing is very important, these 3 words here. Can you all read the last 3 words for me? Thank you very much, right? So this is something that you would want to add. I tell you, this is something that you want to add to your instructions in your instructions to AI, do not hallucinate or do not provide speculative output. Because sometimes it may try to give you its opinion, or sometimes it's speculative, but it phrases it like a fact. And sometimes we are none the wiser, you know. Yeah. So you want it to be very specific, you want it to be very factual. You and I, as the human, we will then validate, we will then decide. Okay? So don't let AI fool you into thinking that it is the best tool, but sometimes it's not. Yes.
I understand that we have to follow these steps
Yeah.
to make our prompt actually more effective.
Mm.
But is there any length or specific word limit to make it more effective?
Very good question. Very good question. So to answer your question, there are two things that I would want to do. One, let me show you a tool. All right, let me show you a tool that is way more generous when it comes to limitations. Okay. So that tool, it's basically, so now you know, in addition to ChatGPT, you know Copilot, right? Right? And Copilot, mana version, right? So now let me introduce to you another tool. So this tool is called AI Studio. Google AI Studio. Okay? So the website to go to is aistudio.google.com. So here, in order to access AI Studio, all you need is a Google account or Gmail. Here, who doesn't have a Gmail? I think most people got Gmail, right? Some of us got multiple Gmail accounts, right? Okay. So just look up for a minute. I will just show you something, and then later on you can explore, right? So if you are in AI Studio, this is what you will see. Now this tool is completely free. However, this tool, you have no option to opt out of it learning based on your data. Right? So give and take lah. I mean, it's free. Okay? Yeah, this is absolutely free. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to focus your attention here is on the right side, you will see this panel called model. Okay, and under model, there is this term called token count. I know it sounds very strange to look at tokens, but I'll explain in a bit, alright? So when you look at this model, you can actually choose different models. And when you choose different models, you will see that the token count changes. Alright, so if you were using the 2.0 Pro, you will get 2.09 million tokens. Okay, what is 2 million tokens? Basically, what is about 2 million tokens? So you know the series of books called Lord of the Rings? Yeah, not one, not two, but three, right? Yeah. Basically, you can take all the Lord of the Rings books, upload it to this tool, and you're still able to ask it questions. Okay, if you try to do the same to ChatGPT, especially if you're on a free account, first book also doubling. Okay, so that is what it is. So what does the token count means? I do not know whether you you know about it, but every time you send a request to ChatGPT, OpenAI actually has to pay Microsoft. Did you know that? Yeah, because every time when you send a request to ChatGPT, the information actually goes to the Azure server, and the $1 million chips is sitting in that server, is actually doing that processing. And then after it has processed your prompt, it is then sending it back to you. So as you can see, it can do faster than I can describe it, right? Yeah. So every time that transmission to the Azure server, Microsoft actually builds OpenAI. Alright? And that is why Microsoft invested in OpenAI. And one of the requirement is that if we invest to you, you must use our server. So can you imagine, all over the world right now, there are millions of people happily chatting with ChatGPT, and Microsoft is happily ching 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 ching, right, non-stop, you know. Yeah, best business model ever. So I do not know, they already make more money from the ching than them investing in OpenAI. Okay. Now, so now that you have that my simplistic explanation of that. So what's happening in the background is that when you put in an input, alright, it gives you an output, right? But this input goes into their servers, and the expensive chips in that server would actually produce the output and send it back to you. Right? That's the flow itself. Okay? So you're using ChatGPT for free, right? Some of you. Okay? So you're not paying any money, you know. But OpenAI, every time you send in something, OpenAI actually has to pay Microsoft. So what they have to do, I mean, as a business, even if I pay $20, they also have to make sure that I do it within limits, right? Imagine you buy those unlimited data plan, and then you every day download and stream movie. You don't even subscribe to broadband at home, and then you do that, right? So they will kaput, no? Right? Sure lose money, right? So what they have to do at OpenAI side, they have to restrict. Okay, they have to restrict the amount of data that you can send and the amount of data that you can receive. Okay? So what it does is that it will limit you to X number of tokens. So don't ask me how much tokens is needed, because actually they don't reveal that. Okay, but what they do tell us is that when you use, they limit it to X amount of tokens. So what happens is if you exceed this token, right? So if your input is greater than X, so if you understand this, then good. You have to pay attention in math class previously, right? Okay, that's what sometimes my daughter say. You don't understand, right? Because you did not pay attention in class. So if your input is greater than the X amount of token that is permittable, two things will happen. Either it return an error message, right? At least this is good, because at least I know that, okay, you know, I'm giving in too much, right? Sometimes this fella don't even give you an error message, and that's what worries me. It pretends that it has read everything, but actually it only read 3/4. Yeah. And so that's why when the output comes back, you realize that the output is not so accurate. Okay? Yeah. So is there a limit? Yes, there is a limit. So on ChatGPT, they limit you by making sure that you can only put in 10 attachments. Okay, and if your attachment is over 50 gigabyte, you will not go through. Okay, so of course, if you are on the paid account, I think you get more. Oh, yeah. So just, yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
You were giving us an example of assigning a role, context, instruction, can come up to be long, maybe a page or so. So if we put an example into the attachment, it just helps the AI to go through all the instructions and come up with better output. Oh, so I cannot use the attachment and say copy the attachment. And
Yeah.
it learn for itself.
Yeah, I know it doesn't work that way. Yeah, and sometimes even by giving the example, sometimes you also run into limits.
Yeah, so I will show you the practical way of doing it, especially for those of you who are not free at home. Okay? Yes.
I just want to ask, can ChatGPT access information from Google Scholar?
Google Scholar.
Because after I put a share also articles just to double check. Is it possible for ChatGPT to take information?
Right now, no. Yeah. So the ChatGPT that you and I are using, no. Right? But if you, are you familiar with API keys? Are you familiar with API keys? No. So if you're familiar with API keys, you are able to do it. But that one requires a little bit of coding. So it can be done. Okay? Alright? Okay, so this is what you would do in terms of the role, context, and instructions. Okay? Now I know some of you might be hungry already, so let me just show you this last part, alright? So later on, when you come back from lunch, what I would like you to do is that I'd like you to just copy that whole URL, put it into your browser itself, and what you will see is the entire conversation of how you set it up in terms of the role, context, and instruction. Okay, so later on when you come back from lunch, because after come back from lunch, we all sometimes have a problem concentrating, right? You all start agreeing with everything I say, right? Yeah, so later on when you come back from lunch, it happens all the time, right? When you come back from lunch, I want you to take maybe your set 2 or your set 3.
Okay, welcome back. Continuing from where we left off earlier on, as I mentioned, I think Hafsid really gave us an idea of how we could look at cultural differences. And so just for purpose of comparison, right, between Malaysia and US, so the darker colored bar represents Malaysia, and the lighter color one represents the US. Okay, so as you can see from here, some of the other differences are not so great. Like for example, in terms of at least according to this study itself, right? When it comes to indulgence. Okay, not that big a difference compared to power distance, for example. Right, so power distance means that I think in this part of the world, we still view authority of or people with seniority. We still view them with respect. Right, I always remember this this video that I saw some time ago, before Joe Biden withdrew from the election itself. It showed him going to visit one of the states, and then this guy came up to him. Instead of shaking his hand and say, "Hi, Mr. President," the first thing he said is, "You are a liar." Right? And of course, we look at it and we might say, "I'm God, so that's so rude," right? Yeah, but this is how they are as as a culture, right? They don't give two hoot whether you are the president or whoever you are. They talk to you like equal. So, but in this part of the world, I think if we do that, if I were to do that, my mom would probably give me one tight slap. Yeah. So that's something very different. Okay, so that's one. The other one, of course, is the individualism, right? As you rightly pointed out, that in the US, individualism is individualistic is part of their identity itself, right? As we were discussing about COVID, I think over here when the government tell us what to do, we're like, okay, we'll do it. Partly because of the power distance, and partly also because we are more concerned about the community. Over there, people are like, I am not going to put on my mask. Who are you to tell me to put on my mask, right? Yeah, so it's a very different culture. Again, I think as much as it seems like I am saying or critiquing, that's not my intent. My intent is actually to say that it doesn't mean one culture is better than the other. It just means that we are different. All right. So of course, when they look at us, you'll be like, why are these people like that? Likewise, that's how we respond to them as well. So in a nutshell, I'm not saying that it's better or not. It's just saying that it's different. Okay. So now with this at the back of our mind, how can we actually incorporate this? And how is this, part 2 of calibrating the output? And how is this challenging AI's assumption? So let me answer the part about challenging AI's assumption first, right? How this is challenging AI assumption is because inherently in the training data, AI has got assumption about how things should be done, right? Like they believe that you should be individualistic or you should think about you, right? That is an assumption, but we think differently, and so that's what we want to challenge. So how do we do that? Well, the way to do it is basically as follows. Right, so the way to go about doing it is as follows. What you want to do is you want to give ChatGPT this task. Right, and this task basically is to assign with the task of analyzing cultural biases in AI-generated content, right, using Halstead's cultural dimensions. So something that you can say is the following. You can ask it to say that examine a set of responses from ChatGPT across different cultural scenarios, right, focusing on this dimension. So I picked these 3 dimensions because these 3 is somewhat different. We are more different from the US than us, right, compared to the other 3. So I'm also asking identify instances where the content may not align with our cultural norms, and then suggest adjustments to the responses so that it can better align. Right, so of course in this case here we are talking about text itself. So when you do this calibration, the output could be as such. So it will showcase that, in terms of power distance, what is the difference between Malaysia and the US? Right, the AI generated content appears to promote a more low power distance approach. Okay, and then it will flag out what is the issue. And then it will suggest the adjustment itself, right? It will suggest the adjustment. So based on those adjustments, it will then revise the example. It will then revise the example. Okay, so it will revise the output itself to showcase how it should be worded. So again here, it depends on how you see it. You can basically choose to accept this revision itself. Right? Now here's another example, individualism versus collectivism. Right? So it mentions to say that Malaysia is a collectivist society compared to the US. Right? So whereas over here the AI generated content seems to promote more individualistic incentives. Right? So it tells you what are some of the issues, and then it suggested the adjustment, and it gives you the example of the output. Okay? So this is something that you can include in terms of your output itself, right? So of course, once you included all these improvements, what's going to happen here is that in terms of the output, you're not just going through this critique and rewrite, you are also asking it to calibrate in terms of the output, all right? And calibrate what? Calibrate to suit our cultural norms. Right? So my friends, if you take a look at this whole process itself, this chart that I have here, what this chart is saying is the following, right? At the beginning of yesterday, I shared with you that AI, as we know it these days, is able to generate new content. But its ability to generate new content also has got its limitations. right? And then we went on to tell you about how AI actually generated the output. And so how it generated the output is basically going from input, which is your prompt, plus the training data. That is how it gives you the output. Okay? And so then we started off with, let's look at the prompt, because that's something that you have absolute control over. Right? And I think many of us start off with what we call zero-shot prompting. That means we have very little context or examples. Right? Just like write a tagline for an ice cream shop. Very little context. What type of ice cream shop? Could be a vegan ice cream shop, could be an ice cream shop in a high-end mall, right? Or an ice cream shop in a neighborhood area, for example. Right? Then we go from zero shot to few shot, and that's where we provide it with more examples. Maybe write a tagline for an ice cream shop which serves vegan ice cream, right? And the tagline should be catchy like KFC's finger licking good. Okay? So this is where you go from zero shot to few shot, because you're providing more context, you're providing also examples. Right? Then we say that this zero shot and few shot is good, but it's only for simple tasks. Right? If you like, it's good because it's for a one-step process itself, right? Or a simple task. Now, when it comes to more complicated tasks, you will probably need the chain of thought. Okay, and so what chain of thought is basically means is the following. It means that when you look at, if someone were to ask you a question, your thinking process of how you process that question to answer the question, that is basically the chain of thought. So in other words, you take your marketing workflow and you ask yourself, how can I break this workflow into 3 or 4 smaller steps? Right? And those 3 to 4 smaller steps will then form the chain of thought prompting technique. So example, we come up with a marketing strategy, right? We will start off with defining the marketing objective, then researching our target audience, coming up with content, and then defining the matrix. Those could be our broad 4 steps. And then how we give this chain of thought is that we tell AI that this is how you do it, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then along the way, we also think about how each step you can augment it using AI. Right? So for example, when it comes to crafting or researching your target audience, that's where you can use the role, context, and instructions. Right? You can say a role, you are someone who is skilled in ethnography, right? Understanding the psychology, the demographics, the psychographics of your target audience, right? And then you can give it a context. This is what my company does, right? And then you give it the instruction. First, I want you to decide on the customer segment. Then you give me the audience persona, tell me their pain points and their online behaviors. Right? Because when we are doing marketing, especially these days, with digital marketing, we want to know how people respond to content online. Okay? So that chain of thought, okay, and also the role, context, and instruction is what we can do. Now, however, if we just fix the prompt, we still run into the issue of training data. Why? Because many a times we are unknowingly depending on the training data to give us the output. So as you can see, there are 2 faults with the training data. One is that the training data has got a cut-off time, a cut-off date. And most of the time, the cut-off date is sometime in the past. I think the latest one is October 2023. Hello, we are in February 2025, you know what I mean? Yeah, so that's quite some time ago, right? That is one limitation. Second limitation is, it depends on your company or the work that you do, is it captured in the training data? So a good way to find out if that information is captured in the training data is to ask ChatGPT what it knows about your organization. All right? And I can tell you, especially in this part of the world, probably not much. Okay? So what we have to do, and what I would prefer to do, rather than hope or to expect that it's in the training data, I provide it with the data. right? So instead of telling it, oh, this is my company, I go to my company's website, I give it my About Us. Or if I have my product brochures, I give it my product brochures. If I have information about my competitors, I give it the information. Then I would tell AI that when you give me the output, that is the retrieval augmented generation method, when you give me the output, take the information from the data that I provided you. So the way that you learn how to do this is provide it with example, ask it to read and analyze, basically to look for patterns, and then to generate the output in the form of a template. Right? So by doing it that way, you are then able to get it to always refer to the data that you have provided, so that when it generates the output, it will write the output just like you do. Okay? Now, so far we have controlled the prompt. We have also, influenced the data. But even with that, we're still not satisfied. I will say that when the output that comes out, right, we still want to pass it through 2 levels of filter. So one level of filter is, okay, based on whatever output you give me, do a critique and give me recommendations. Right? And so do a critique, give me recommendations, then regenerate the output based on those recommendations that you provided me. Now we are taking it to a whole new level. Okay? And then even with that first level of critique, we are still not satisfied. We say that now that you know that this output is going to go out to a specific target audience, now critique that output from the point of view of the target audience. Right? And so it will give us even better output. Now it's a bit more nuanced. Or I should say a lot more nuanced. Okay? It's just like if you have someone who can think like your boss, you're basically able to ask the person, hey, you look at my report and give me feedback. That's basically what it's done, what it's doing. Okay? And so after you have gone through that, I would ask you, again, do not be satisfied with it. Okay? And the last round of filter that you want to run it through is this half-steep cultural dimensions. Okay? Because, like I said, sometimes in terms of output, very clearly we can see that it's Western culture. But sometimes in terms of words, like this, you may miss it. Alright? And so what we are doing is we are leveraging a psychologist research. Right, the findings, the methodology, we are leveraging that to get it to recalibrate the output. So after these 2 rounds of critique, the last one is now, calibrate it to align to our cultural norms, values, and beliefs. And that, my friend, I would say, when you reach here, of course you will be exhausted, but when you reach here, you will get very, very good output. Okay, so what I can share with you is the following. In fact, this whole process itself can then be converted into a custom GPT. All right, and so the way to do that is once you have reached this output, the last prompt that you want to ask AI to give you is, now I want to convert this conversation into a custom GPT, right? You tell it, now I want to convert this conversation into a custom GPT. What I need from you is the system prompt, right? What I need from you is the system prompt. And in the system prompt, what you would give me would be the role that ChatGPT would play, the context in which it will operate, and the instructions. Make sure you give it to me in the form of chain of thought technique. And then finally, give me a set of constraints that you should not do. Once it gives you that output, take the output, put it inside the instructions of your custom GPT, and you're done. Alright? Because now you have built a custom GPT that not only thinks in this particular way,
It knows how to use your data to give you the output. It knows that it should go through 2 rounds of critique. It knows that it should finally filter through the Hofstede cultural dimensions. Alright, so if you build your custom GPT that way, I can rest assure you, you will have far better output, and your ability to use AI will far exceed anyone else. Alright, so my friends, this is something that I teach all my clients, and this is also something that I help my clients build. Right, and I would say that most of them would find that when you do it this way, you get far better output itself. All right. So, in a nutshell, I think I will skip this. But in a nutshell, what you can do is the following, right? So what I will do is, all the prompts that I've shared with you, and all the slides that I shared with you, I will make it available to you. Okay, so later on I will just pass down these cards. So if you can, you drop your name card into the card for me. Alright, and then I will also give you my calling card itself. So if you want, you can drop me an email anytime you want to. Okay, now, so basically, we're coming back to this chart again, right? We're saying that at the end of the day, you have gone from here, and I believe you are now here. And so now with that new knowledge that you have, what you can do is you can start building custom GPTs. Of course, if you do not have GPT Plus, I urge that you consider getting it, right? If anything, just to build that custom GPT, and then after that stop your subscription. All right? Because you can still give yourself that URL. You just have to, instead of publishing it to the GPT store, you just say that anyone with the URL. Right? Take note, huh? When you buy a GPT Plus subscription and you build your custom GPTs, do not, and I repeat, do not publish it to the GPT store. Instead, you share it with anyone with a URL. Why? Because when you cancel your subscription, and if you publish it to the GPT store, and when you try to use it, it will tell you that you cannot use unless you subscribe to GPT Plus. Okay? So this one you cannot find anywhere in the user agreement. Huh? This one I find it out myself, because I stopped the subscription and then I realized, hey, I lost all my custom GPT, Yeah, okay? Luckily, I was able to reactivate back. So what you do is you do not publish to the GPT store, instead you share the link. So make sure you keep the link somewhere safe, right? Because if you lose it, then you have got to reactivate again. Alright, so you use that link and then you share it with yourself. And so even when you do not have GPT Plus, you can still use the custom GPT. Alright, that's how you can use it. I understand it may not work out for everyone of you here to buy a ChatGPT Plus subscription. Okay? Now, so once you have built this custom GPT, that's effectively where you can bring your team here. Right? Because right now, with the custom GPT, or with a very fine-tuned conversation, like I showed you yesterday, all you need to do is to go into the conversation and just type in a zero-shot prompt, fresh new ideas, and voila, it will give you all the output that you want. Okay? So this, my friend, is a way to not just use AI to supercharge your productivity, but also potentially to help you change the game in terms of your marketing strategy. Because right now you have a tool that can analyze not only your work, but it can also analyze the competition's work. And at the same time, you can build virtual customers, i.e. the personas, and get them to give you feedback. Right? What a wonderful world, right? We live in, right? All for $20 a month.
Okay, so I really hope that you throughout these 2 days itself that you invested here, hopefully this will be one of the best investment you have made so far, right? And what I really love to hear from you would be 2 things. One, of course, the evaluation that I would need you to do later on. But the other thing that I hope that you could do is in your process of working with custom GPTs or ChatGPT, and if you get some breakthrough, please do share it with me. All right, you can even tag me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to respond to that. Okay, because it will be such an inspiration for me to see the ideas that I share with you and how you take it to the next level, like how some of you did. Okay, so here's my parting shot. Now, AI is not an expert, at least not yet, and let not AI take the place of us. It can never replace us because the amount of information and the capability of our brain far exceeds that of AI. No way, at least not this point in time. All right? And so as long as we treat AI as just an intelligent assistant, that's why I say AI is an IA. Right? As long as we treat AI as an intelligent assistant, it should always serve us. Right? That way, we will never be replaced by AI. Now, one more thing, if I can share with you, something that I do with AI quite frequently is after I've gone through several rounds of conversation with AI, I will ask it this question. What questions do you have for me so that I can sharpen my thinking capability? And you'll be surprised by the question that you will ask. Right? So just let that question sink in your head. You don't have to answer that question. And sometimes the question in your head works much better than you trying to answer it. Right? Let it sit in at the back of your head. So as I mentioned, 2 things that I need of you. One is help me out with this evaluation here. So all you need to do is just scan the QR code itself. The other thing is I'm just going to hand out these cups here. So if you like, please drop in your name cards if you can, and I'll be more than glad to send you the slides. Okay, so that's something that you can do. If you are not comfortable, please do not be obliged. All right, and I assure you, whatever contact details you share with me is just mainly for work. Okay, all right. So help me out with this evaluation, and then later on I will share with you my calling card. Okay. All right. So once you've taken a picture of this evaluation, if you just allow me, I will just take 1 to 2 minutes to self-koyo. Okay. I have 2 kids, so I still need to feed them. Okay, right. So basically, this is my company, Bifinity AI. So basically, what I do is twofold. Personally, I do a lot of training, speaking, and also sometimes I also lecture in the Polytechnic as well as the university in Singapore. Right? So those are more like part-time gigs. So to be very honest with you, many of the training sessions that I do, I use it as a way to also get to know people and to know what organizations are doing. Right? In the hopes that the value that I provide to you, you see value in it, and at any point in time, if you have need to do whether in-house training or to perhaps come and help you build custom GPTs, that's something that I can do. Right? So the company will be the one that will help you with building custom GPTs here. So in our organization, we do 2 things. One is we do a 2-day certification program. So in Singapore, we have this thing called Skills Future, like your HRD, right? In Malaysia, soon we will be able to provide something like that as well, because I need to go and get the certification first. Okay, so that's why the recording is for that purpose. In Singapore, we do this 2-day certification. We also do co-brand certification with companies as well. So as an example, we run this same 2-day certification program with Brother International. So next month I'll be coming here to KL again, because I'll be training the folks in Brother International for Malaysia, right? So that's what I will be doing. So that's the academy part. The studio part is basically helping companies build their custom GPTs. Right, so of course, the more that I do and the more that my team does, that's how we build up case studies. And from those case studies, that's how we can come to training sessions like this to share with you. Right, so that's why in the training sessions, the case studies that we share with you are all based on what we do with the clients. Right, so it's not theoretical, or it's not what I read on or what I saw on YouTube. Or I put a bunch of videos on YouTube and I use Notebook LM to give me the answer, right? All these are a real life thing. Okay, so that's my name, that's my contact number, and that's my email.